Part 25 of the Irrational series. Let's go. Kirishima's point of view. "Hey, Baku bro," he yelled. "We're eating! You coming?" He nudged open the door of Bakugo's room. The blonde was sitting on the floor, facing away. He was doing curls with a hand weight, but his heart didn't seem to be in it. "You okay, man?" Kirishima pushed the door open further and walked in. "You seem kinda distracted." "Stupid hair. Stay out of my room." Kiri held up his hands placatingly. "Whoa, dude. I've been in your room before. What's going on?" He glanced around. "Also, have you seen Eiko? She came to get the cooler, but never came back." "Yeah, I saw her," Bakugo snapped harshly. Kiri recoiled in surprise, hesitated, then slowly walked towards Bakugo. "Did something happen?" Bakugo was silent for a moment. "She told me that I trigger her PTSD or something, and then she jumped out of the window and left." He curled the hand weight furiously, glaring at the ground. Kiri's eyes widened. "That doesn't sound like Eiko to cause a scene. What upset her?" Bakugo scowled. "I told her that she shouldn't trust that brainwash guy." Kiri was flabbergasted. "What? Why? They bike to school together all the time. They must be close. No wonder she was mad." "Because," Bakugo growled, "disaster follows everywhere he goes, but he always has an excuse. The USJ attack. Cat Ear's getting thrown in jail. He's always connected somehow, watching everything happen with that smug grin." Kiri scratched the back of his neck. "That doesn't really sound like proof. Are you sure about this, Bakubro?" Bakugo glowered in the silence. Okay, Kiri shrugged. "You were trying to look out for her, but she got upset. So what are you gonna do?" "She can't stand being around me. She said, when I yell, she doesn't feel safe. What am I supposed to do? I can't just be all emotionless like Icy Hot or Tail." Kiri looked at Bakugo in surprise. Bakugo was taking this really seriously, trying to figure out how to be someone you liked. He sat down on the floor next to Bakugo. "Maybe she just doesn't understand you. I know you're intense because you care about everything you do, but Eiko might think you're about to punch someone." "How am I supposed to make someone understand me?" "Well, with Eiko, I think you need to be really gentle, man. I know you have a soft side, so maybe show it a bit more. Then she'll realize what you're all about and feel less scared when you get intense." He glanced sideways and saw Bakugo scribbling notes into a notebook. Kiri hid a smile. Bakugo really did hide so much of his personality behind his constant yelling. He was intense, that was for sure. But he was also studious, disciplined, and extremely caring. Maybe Eiko was the wake-up call he needed to start communicating better. Hitoshi's point of view. "I need to tell you about your father." Rather than jumping at the opportunity to ask questions, Shinso narrowed his eyes. "Why now? After all this time, what makes now any different?" "You're older now. You're strong enough to hear it." Dread settled in the pit of his stomach. "And," Amaya said in a pained voice, "Eiko just found out." Shinso was instantly on his feet. "What does Eiko have to do with this?" Amaya looked at him with the eyes of someone who has carried a heavy secret for far too long. "Hitoshi, sit down. I have a lot to tell you." She told him. Everything. Shinso stood again, knocking his chair backwards this time. "He's a villain," he said flatly. "Yes." "And he hurt Eiko?" Amaya nodded brokenly. Tears pricked at Shinso's eyes, and he clenched his teeth to stop them. He had always harbored a slight, unrealistic hope that his father was a good person. Maybe he'd died a hero. Maybe there was a good reason why he wasn't in their lives anymore. But although he'd suspected the truth would be worse, he could not have imagined it would be this personal. His father hadn't been absent in his life. He'd been the worst part of his life. The villain who had hurt you. Shinso brainwashed his mother. In his emotional state, even her nonverbal nod was enough. "Why didn't you do more to stop him? Why didn't you help the police catch him?" He could feel his questions reverberating through her mind as she stared at him helplessly. "I tried," she said in a broken monotone. It was the compulsory truth. He couldn't question it. There was nothing more to ask her. His real question came out in a rush. "Why does it have to be like this?" "I've wondered, many times," Amaya's brainwashed reply came. Shinso released her. He shouldn't have brainwashed her in the first place. He just hadn't been in control of himself. "I need time to think. Please don't follow me." He was biking away within moments. No destination in mind, just the need to get away. To pedal as hard as he could until his breaths came in ragged gasps. "Hitoshi!" you called from the distance. How had you found him? He glanced over his shoulder as you sped up, closing the distance on your own bike. It was the bike the two of you had spray-painted as kids. It had broken countless times over the years, but thanks to his repairs, remained functional. He tried to speed up, but he couldn't beat your quirk-enhanced speed and strength. That was one of the most irritating things about you. No matter how hard he trained, he would never be faster than you in a bike race. "Please go home, Eiko," he tried. "Stop, Hitoshi," you panted. "I have somewhere I want to take you." Closing the distance that quickly must have been hard even for you. "Not in the mood." He pedaled faster. "Stop trying to leave me in the dust," you complained. "Just stop your bike." "Not a chance. Go away." You fell silent, keeping pace as you obviously tried to think of a way to make him stop. "Look, Shinso, it's Eraserhead wearing All Might merch." As though I'd fall for that. "Look, Shinso, it's All Might wearing Eraserhead merch." "Eraserhead doesn't have merch," he scoffed. He would know. He'd spent a decent amount of time searching for it, but he'd never let the Aizawa family find that out. "Look, Shinso," you tried again. "It's a cat riding a bicycle." As though I'd fall for... Shinso's voice choked off as he saw a very real black cat wobbling precariously on the seat of your spray-painted bicycle, which hurtled forward at reckless speed. Without thinking, he dove forward, scooping you up and rolling on the ground with you just before your bike hit a pothole, flipped around, and crashed violently. His own bike skidded on its side. Shinso curled around the cat that was you, panting from the close call. "Eiko, you idiot," he growled. You suddenly shifted back, sliding into him like a small spoon since he was still curled around you. "Sorry," you said apologetically. He reluctantly let you go, and you rolled over to sprawl on the roadside next to him. "But," you went on, "I had to do that." "I think you totaled your bike," Shinso accused, gesturing. Both bikes had skidded onto the roadside a bit further down the road. Shinso's bike looked fine, but yours... "You can fix it," you said brightly. "Your confidence in me is annoying." You turned to look at him. "I'm going to need a ride on your handlebars." Shinso sighed irritably. "Was this your plan all along? To ensure I couldn't get you off my tail?" "No," you grinned. "But how convenient that it worked out that way." How could you act so carefree when you'd just learned what he'd learned? "Come on." You hopped up, pulling on his arm to help him stand. "I have somewhere I want you to take me." Shinso allowed you to help him to his feet, scowling. He clearly couldn't escape you, so he'd take you to whatever that place was, and then he'd make you understand why you should leave. As soon as his feet rested on the pedals, you hopped lightly onto the handlebars. You became his human GPS for the next 15 minutes of pedaling. Just when Shinso was about to demand how far away the location was, you pointed to a place up the block. "There it is!" He craned his neck to see past you. It was just a cafe. Only once the bike had been locked, and you dragged him inside, did he realize that it was a cat cafe. You pulled him along happily, past various meandering cats, to a small window booth. He almost felt bad for what he was about to say, but he'd feel even worse if he didn't. Your point of view. So far, so good. Hitoshi was obviously in a terrible mood, but there was no way you were going to let him isolate himself while he was going through this. You knew him. If he did that, it wouldn't be a matter of days before he came around. It might be months, or even never. You still weren't sure what you were going to say to him. Should you point out that there was another Hero Course student with a villain father? There was a dude in Class 1B with the ability to make walls out of air, and his dad was a villain. No, that comparison probably wouldn't make him feel any better. You'd just have to hope the right words came. You looked at him across the booth. You can't deny that you've always wanted to come to a place like this, you grinned. Shinso glowered at you. Eiko, you shouldn't be here. Spending time with me is dangerous. We can't keep pretending. You tilted your head, partly playing dumb, and partly genuinely confused. How is it dangerous? He sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. My father is a villain, Eiko. You know that now. He glared at you. Doesn't it seem like a bit of a coincidence that he is attacking you, my best friend? You would never have been targeted if you didn't know me. Huh. You leaned back, thinking. That actually makes sense. You grinned toothily. But I don't care. Shinso was spitting mad. How can you not care? You were hospitalized twice. Small price to pay for my best friend. You're missing the point. What is the point? How can you even see me the same? How can you see me and not see him? How do you know that I'll be able to keep you safe, or that anyone will be able to protect you from him, if Aizawa couldn't? You leaned across the table and put a finger to his lips, startling him to silence. You worry too much, you smirked, sitting back. Shinso flushed at the fading sensation of your finger on his lips. That's a terrible argument, Eiko. Actually, it's an infallible one. I just countered all of your points in a single sentence. You sobered as he scowled. Listen, no matter what, you're stuck with me. So you have two options, Shinso. Option A, you can ignore me and let me get myself into all kinds of trouble. Shinso grimaced. It was too easy to picture. Or, option B, you can stick with me like the hero I know you are, and kick a villain butt, regardless of the villain's relation to you. Shinso's exasperation slowly became a grudging smile, and he shook his head. You make the craziest arguments of anyone I know, but you would get yourself into trouble. Option B makes more sense. Smart boy, you congratulated, ruffling his hair. A waitress interrupted the moment to ask for your order, so you quickly ordered something you knew Hitoshi would like. No sooner had she left than you got a text notification from Dad. It read, If you think he's in a place to hear it, I have some good news for Shinso. Curious, you showed the text to Hitoshi. Do you have any idea what this is about? He shook his head, perplexed. Before he could say anything, you called Aizawa. Hello? Hi, Dad. I'm here with Shinso. You're on speakerphone. Good. Shinso, you've been approved to join the Hero Course. You'll be in Class 1A starting next week. Eyes wide, you turned to look at Shinso, who looked just as shocked as you felt. Your heart swelled with an emotion that threatened to make you start happy crying. He'd waited so long for this. Thank you, Aizawa-sensei, Shinso said faintly, starting to smile. No problem. You'll get the official letter from UA in the mail within a few days. As soon as you hung up, you cheered loudly, startling several cats. Shinso leaned forward, elbows on the table, looking dazed, then grinned. I wonder if Class 1A is ready for me. Aizawa's point of view. Aizawa put his phone back in his pocket as he stood on the rooftop. It sounded like your efforts to help Shinso with the news about his father had worked. Hopefully the admission to the Hero Course would solidify your efforts to cheer him up. He felt a sense of satisfaction at seeing the school recognize Shinso's potential. But there was an even bigger issue on Aizawa's mind. He'd been working on your case with Tsukauchi. The agent that they'd borrowed from the Public Safety Commission had successfully infiltrated the organization that was targeting you. They now had a name to call the enemy: the League of Villains. Additionally, the double agent had managed to take a DNA sample from the Misty Warpgate villain known as Kurogiri. The sample had been stealthily flown into the police headquarters on a red feather, and the DNA was a match for Oburo Shirakumo. Aizawa pulled the old photograph out of his pocket, gazing at the faded image of his younger high school self putting up with his two loud friends, Mike and Shirakumo. He'd been carrying the photograph with him ever since the DNA test results had come back as a match. Not for irrational sentimental reasons, for a purpose. He looked out at the setting sun and the bright clouds framing it. The wind ruffled his dark hair. He was going to bring Shirakumo back.
Oh, I got lost on the way to you in an orange sky by the ocean blue. Every mile lost, my soul renewed, taken by the sunrise and the golden view.
Thank you for listening to part 25 of the Irrational series. Also, heads up, I set up a virtual tip jar. You can check it out in the description. No pressure, all my content is free, and I appreciate you simply being here. But if you want to drop a tip to motivate me to write, you can find that in the description of all of my videos now. Have a great day, guys!